What does?
Okay, what is something that anyone has the right to do, but they're a dick if they do it?
What?
Change their name to Richard. Oh my gosh.
Good thing you're pretty.
Okay, I bought the world's worst I can't say this word, thesaurus yesterday. Not only is it terrible, it's terrible. Okay, two more. My wife threatened to divorce me when I said I was going to give our daughter a silly name, so I called her bluff. Oh, okay. Last one. I call my horse Mayo. Sometimes Mayo neighs.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I appreciate your pity laugh so much.
Oh, hey, Kourtney, look at this.
What? No. Are you winning again?
No, that's
I'm
yours.
winning.
You're winning.
Yes. It's
So-
about time,
So
people.
Kourtney's episodes officially have more listens than mine do.
Well, just the first one.
Fine, just the first one.
For the first, how long have we been doing this? 5 weeks of this podcast being out. Miles's episode, which was episode 2, had more listens than episode 1.
It's because the name is intriguing. The
Okay, but-
bubble-headed genius. Like, what does that mean? You know?
But who starts a new podcast at episode 2?
I don't know. We've started podcasts at like episode 120.
But those
whatever.
were established podcasts
That's true.
where
That's
you
true.
can browse and be like, ooh, this one sounds interesting. But when you have 3 options, pick the first one.
Right. No, you're not wrong. Well, anyway, hey listeners.
Hi, welcome back.
So just a quick little thing before we get into Kourtney's story here today. We just wanted to point out to our listeners in every state that we have listeners in. So
We're going to give a shout out.
a shout out. What did I say?
You said we're going to point out.
Oh, a shout out, not a point out.
Yeah, we're
Gonna give a shout out.
shout out to everyone all of the different states that we have listeners in, because it's a growing list and it's very exciting.
Yeah. So we have Wyoming,
Montana,
North Carolina,
Colorado,
Utah,
Virginia,
California,
Texas,
Idaho,
Nebraska,
Kansas,
Minnesota,
Oregon,
New York,
South Carolina.
and Missouri.
Ayo. How many states? I didn't count that. How many states was that?
16.
Where's
Hey.
my phone? Do the math. What's the percentage on that?
I have no idea. But that's super cool. I know 16 isn't a lot, but hey, we just started a month ago.
Well, it is kind of a lot. 16 states is kind of a lot.
Well, and there's several states on there that we don't know anybody.
Yeah.
So it's not just pity listens from family and
Right.
friends.
So hello, those people we don't know.
Hi, welcome. We're happy to have you as part of our fam Damily. Oh, we also have some listeners in
In Australia,
the motherland of my spouse,
that's me.
esposo.
Yeah, specifically from Victoria, because that's where most of my extended family comes from. Hey guys.
Yes, the pity listen all the way across the pond.
They're probably the ones that listen to the second episode and like the first 10 seconds and like, yeah, that's probably good.
I promise my episodes are good.
They
Okay.
are. I like your stories.
Yeah, so actually we ordered kind of a fun thing, and it's here. I'm literally looking at it right now. But we ordered a world map that has Fam Damily podcast across the top, and we are going to hang it up in our living room and get some push pins and start marking off where all of our listeners are from. So that's kind of exciting. And once we get it hung up, I'll take a picture of it and post it on our Instagram so you guys can see it. It's super cute. And then you can follow along as we add pins to it.
Yeah.
Say something funny.
Something funny.
Okay. All right. You ready for my story?
I'm ready for your story.
Okay. So this story, it's not one of the longer ones that I've done, which is fine because we've done a lot of long ones recently. this is a really interesting story, and I was very entertained by it. So this is the story of a woman named Constance Kopp.
Constance Kopp. Okay.
So we'll give a little bit of history first. So Constance Damily Kopp was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1878.
Nice.
She is one of 3 sisters named or nicknamed the Kopp sisters. So when she and her younger sister were kids, they moved along with their parents to New Jersey to live on a farm. You know, they grew up there. While they were there, Constance got pregnant, but she was not married. She was in like her early 20s or late teens. Anyways, she wasn't married, and this was, you know, late 1800s. And so her parents actually raised the baby as Constance's sister. Oh. So the baby grew up believing that she was the sister.
Okay.
And so that's just a little bit of background, but those are the 3. So it's Constance and her sister Norma, who was born in 1883, Norma Charlotte Kopp, not to be confused with the opera singer at the time, who I guess was really popular. Apparently, Norma was not the easiest person to get along with. She was pretty stubborn, highly opinionated, and, quote, had a mind like a steel trap. Her obituary described her as a huntswoman, very capable with guns, and fearless.
Who does that sound like?
I don't know.
Me neither.
I'm sure there's someone. No, but...
If you match that description, give us a shout out.
Yeah, let us know. Is that you? Are you a huntswoman, very capable with guns, and fearless? Anyways.
That'd be a fun, like, Match.com kind of description.
I like long walks on the beach.
And guns.
And I have a mind like a steel trap. No, part of the reason I'm reading their descriptions, these, like, little short descriptions, is because they're all 3 kind of just this collective group of sisters that have a very distinct personality to them. And that'll make more sense as I tell the story.
Okay.
So the youngest, who is biologically Constance's daughter, her name is Florette Eugenie Kopp. She was born in 1897. She was a very talented seamstress. She actually made her own clothes, and she was described as usually very well dressed. And later in life, she actually designed for Vogue and became like a private designer for very well-renowned women. She was involved in theater and did singing contests locally. Her family thought that she was an excellent driver. However, there are a lot of public records of newspaper articles regarding accidents that she had been in.
Oh.
So...
That she caused, or that she was just in?
I don't know. There was just a few. But she was a great driver, apparently. Interestingly enough, she was only 5 feet tall.
Huh.
Constance, however, was 6 feet tall.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
How tall was the baby daddy?
No idea. Probably short. So Constance, we'll go to her because she's, you know, the center of the story. She's also the oldest of the 3. So Constance was 6 feet tall. She studied to be a nurse or a lawyer, but her family kind of discouraged her from studying because, you know, of the times. They wanted her to be a wife, a homemaker. She never actually wanted to marry because during the time, being a wife meant staying home, raising kids, and she didn't want to do that.
Good for her. Stand up for yourself.
Yeah, and this is actually a direct quote from her. She said, "Some women prefer to stay home and take care of their house. Let them. There are plenty who like that kind of work enough to do it. Others want something to do that will take them out among people and affairs. A woman should have the right to do any sort of work she wants to, provided she can do it."
Good for her.
Yeah.
Good for her. I mean, that's a very, like, nowadays, that's a very modern way of thinking too, so that she had it back in the late 1800s. So it's pretty
sure.
noble.
This is just another fun fact about their family is, of course, you know, they grew up in America, but they all spoke fluent French and 2 dialects of German as well.
Hence the name Florette.
Yes.
2 dialects of German? Nice.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Smart family.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So now we're going to go to the day that this story begins, which is July 1914.
Cool.
The Kopps were out for a drive, or at least the 3 sisters were, in their family buggy. So it was like a horse and cart, like a
Mm-hmm.
buggy. And the buggy was hit by a vehicle that was driven by a man named Henry Kaufman, who was a local silk factory owner. At the time of the accident, they were all okay. They all survived, just to get that out there.
Even the horses?
I don't know.
Oh.
Probably. There was damage to the buggy, that's for sure. At the time of the accident, Constance was 35, Norma was 31, and Florette was 16. So, now we know the incident, what happened, right? It was just a simple car accident. Henry Kaufman, the man who caused the accident, we're going to talk about him for a second. So Henry was born in Germany in 1870, and when he was 23, he immigrated to the States, and he worked odd jobs at the Patterson silk industry. Several years later, around May of 1914, which was a few months before this accident, he actually became a partner with his brother and started to run the factory. So he was like an owner of it. Which,
making his way up to the top.
Yeah, and you can think, he was very wealthy during that time. And, comparing this accident he was in, the cops drove a buggy, he drove a car.
Right.
So, unfortunately, though, he isn't the swellest of guys because, and his luck was kind of running low. And I don't know the whole backstory to this, but the same month that he became partners with his brother with his business, his wife left him with their 3 kids.
Aw.
Yeah.
That's really sad.
Yeah.
Did he have it coming?
You'll get more of an opinion of him as we go.
Okay.
So, the accident happened. So he became partner in May. Wife left him, whatever. The accident happens in July. So after the accident, Constance wanted justice, so to speak. So she wanted Henry to pay for the damages.
Makes sense.
Which really wouldn't have been that much considering buggy versus car.
Mm-hmm.
But Henry was stubborn and he didn't want to. So Constance took him to court. And while they were in court, Constance and the Kopp's family, they started to get threatening letters sent to their house.
Oh, no.
So they started receiving these letters. Most of the letters were signed, quote, Friends of HK, Henry Kaufman. So people started showing up at their farm, and they started to feel very threatened because of, the letters and the people lingering out there.
Yeah.
And so they actually got special permission from the sheriff's department to carry concealed weapons with them.
Nice.
And they basically told the sheriff's department, if these trespassers, if they threaten us, we are going to open fire at them. And
Good
there
for
was
them.
actually an instance where they did. So they saw some men lurking in their field or whatever, and they started shooting at them, and then the men shot back.
Oh, they had guns too?
Thankfully, nobody was hurt during this, but they did have people shooting at their house at one point.
Like, that's scary, though. Like, these guys came prepared to shoot. Did they know beforehand that they had guns and stuff? Oh,
No, but
okay.
this had to have been going on long enough for them to feel threatened enough to have guns prepared.
Right.
The women, at least, So,
Man, that's crazy.
oh, it gets worse.
Oh, no.
So, one day, Constance received a letter that was very threatening and demanded that she deliver $1,000 to, quote, a woman in black. And if not, then they would kill her, like open fire at her house and kill her and her family. And they, in the letter, said, we know where you live. We will come and we will kill you. So bring $1,000 and we won't. And deliver it to this woman. So Constance was seemingly unafraid. I'm sure she was terrified, but she put up a really good front. She got the sheriff's department involved, and she went to this street corner that she was supposed to meet this person. And she had the cops waiting around the corner hiding, and she had a gun with her concealed. The woman in black never showed. So she just was waiting, and there were a lot of news articles that were saying, like, she was waiting with a gun, and she's like, well, yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. So the woman never showed. And then a little while later, a man approached Constance by the name of, I got 2 different names. So his name is George, and it's either George Ewing or George Johnson. Either way, George is a friend of Henry Kaufman, and he is also an ex-convict, but they didn't know that at the time. All they knew is that he approached Constance and said, "We need to talk. I've heard rumors of a plot of people wanting to kidnap Florette." So he's like, meet me at this place and we'll talk and we can discuss, maybe some safety measures and I'll give you the information that I have. Anyways, she is one smart cookie. So she met up with George, had the cop around the corner hiding, and she had her gun.
Good.
George attacked her. Constance, was able to get away, and the cops were able to capture George and detain him.
Good.
Yeah.
Take that, George.
So, Constance is pretty dang fearless, I must say.
And good for her too. Like that's smart. That's smart.
Yeah. Just getting all buddy with these cops.
It's probably because they share names.
Cop? I was wondering if you were going to make that joke or not.
I was waiting for the right moment.
So despite all of these threats, Constance still went through with the court proceedings, and she won the trial and Henry was ordered to pay out $50 in damages. However, Henry was stubborn and he didn't pay it. And so actually there was one day Constance was walking down the street and she saw Henry's car, so she ran after it and was like, "Stop. And then she started yelling to people like around her, like, stop that car. And so people started like gathering around his car to the point where he couldn't drive off anymore, and of course he's mad, and so he gets out and it turns into this huge like debacle in the street. And finally a cop comes and he's like, "What's going on?" And they explain the situation, and the cop like commandeers the vehicle or whatever the word is, like takes Henry Kaufman's car, and is like, "Okay, you can have this when you give her the money." And so Henry, of course, in the moment is like, "Fine," and he just pays her on the spot. And then he gets in his car and drives away because, he just had this huge scene in front of a crowd. So there was another instance where Henry was drunk and he drove past, he was with his buddies, and he drove past Constance, who was walking down the street, and he just started harassing her and berating her, and like he stopped the car and everything, and just wouldn't get off of her. And then a cop who was patrolling the street saw what was going on, so he fined him for harassment, and he had to pay $5. so
$55.
Yeah, so 55. Anyways, so soon after all of these things were happening, and this is actually after George was detained and Henry was proven guilty of the car accident. Okay. So soon after that, a handwriting sample obtained from Kaufman was matched with the threatening letters that were sent to Kopp.
The ones that said like friends of HK.
So he was tried and found guilty of all of those threats and everything, and he was fined $1,000.
Nice.
So had he just paid the fee for hitting their buggy, he would only be out $50 instead of $1,055.
Well, this be a lesson to everyone that sometimes it's just better to just roll with it.
Yeah, admit that you're wrong.
Admit that you're wrong. It's not that difficult.
It's like that episode that we just watched of Malcolm in the Middle, when Lois she got pulled over, and the cop was like, "Yeah, you pulled out in front of this car and you made them slam on their brakes, so I'm giving you a fine." And she's like, "I'm fighting this ticket because I know that I'm right." And so they got a video recording that showed that she was wrong, and it crushed her spirit. And then they finally found another video from across the street that showed that the car did an illegal U-turn, and that's why they slammed on their brake. And at the end, was it Hal stomped on the videotape and was like, "Do not show this to her.
Do not tell her ever." That was funny. But yeah, sometimes it's okay to be wrong.
Especially if you're Henry Kaufman. So the sheriff's department was so impressed with Constance's detective skills, with helping them get that ex-convict George, and with her bravery in showing up with these threats with her gun and everything, and then firing back. Like, she just didn't sit there. They were so impressed that they actually offered her a job.
Ooh.
So in 1915, Constance Kopp became the first female sheriff's deputy in the United States.
Cop.
Cop the cop.
I like it.
It's like Marshall the Marshal.
Marshall the Marshall.
Doctor.
Mister.
I'm trying to think of other ones that I know. It's fine. Okay. So now a little bit about some of the things she did while she was a cop. So on December 19th, this is the same year of 1915. I almost said 2015. Nope. 1915. Kopp was on duty with the sheriff, who was Sheriff Robert Heath. And he is the one that's been helping her through all of this. And he's the one that offered her the job. So they're pretty close. And they were working together one night. And Kopp spotted a man named Dr. Herman Albert von Matthias.
How do you spell it?
Matthiesius.
Sure, sounds great.
Anyway, she spotted him near a subway entrance in Brooklyn. And she walked up behind him without making, herself known to him. And she, from behind, threw her arm around him. And, she's 6 foot, but this man was also a big man.
Mm-hmm.
And he had more weight to him than she did. And so there was quite the struggle. She was able to hold him down, basically, until Sheriff Heath got there. And during their struggle, a pair of handcuffs fell out of her purse, and Heath grabbed him off the ground and was able to cuff him really quick.
Ooh.
Heath is the sheriff, so that was good.
Okay.
Anyways, they caught him, and what's awesome about this is that this man, Dr. Herman Matthias, was actually a runaway prisoner who was in prison on allegations of alleged abuse to some of the guys in his job.
Okay.
I didn't get details, but it was implied that it was like sexual abuse.
Okay.
To some of the boys in his job. I don't know exactly what his job was, but
Gotcha. Okay.
anyways, not a good guy, and he escaped from prison. And so, she'd only been a deputy for a short while, and she helped, capture an escaped convict.
Do you know how long he had been escaped for?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I think it was recent. I think it was like within a few weeks.
Good for her.
Yeah. So that was pretty
I keep
cool.
saying that, but honestly, good for her.
No, she's super cool.
Go Constance.
All right. So
Does she become a constable later? Constable Constance.
that would be awesome, but no.
The cop Constable Constance Kopp.
That's a lot. Say that like 6 times fast.
No,
I dare you.
I could barely say it the first.
Constable Constance Kopp.
No, cop, constable, Constance the cop.
Wait, what?
No, hold on. Constable Constance Kopp the cop.
Constable Constance Kopp the cop. I did it.
You did it. I'm so proud of you.
Ugh.
Probably not. I don't know if... Anyway, continue.
Okay. So a few months after that, in April of 1916, Kopp and Heath were transporting a felon named Tony Hodgenaka. Anyways, Tony managed to escape from the vehicle while they were driving, and he dove into the Hackensack River and tried to drown himself. Kopp immediately stripped herself of her overcoat and her skirts and jumped into the river after him. And this was April in Brooklyn. It was cold. She managed to keep him above water, even though he was literally trying to drown himself. So he was trying to push himself under. She managed to keep him above water and get him back to shore.
She's like a superhero.
Yeah, and I actually have a quote. I missed a quote early on, but that's okay. Oh, yeah. So this quote actually has to do with the Matthias case. So I'll go ahead and tell you that one too, because it's really cool. She said, I had worked many days and nights on this case, and twice Dr. von Matthias got away from us when we thought we had him, Kopp said. So I was determined to hang on to him, no matter how rough he might be. None of the men nearby offered to come to my assistance, and I felt relieved when I heard the sheriff's voice. It seemed as though the doctor was about to strike me when the sheriff grabbed his arm and forced him back. So that was during the struggle.
Good job, Heath.
It kind of goes to show like how intense that really had to have been.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, during the struggle, the handcuffs fell out and the sheriff grabbed him and grabbed his arm. Anyways, back to Tony, who jumped into the river. So Tony was really my prisoner, and if he had drowned or escaped, I would have been held responsible. I simply did my duty, and I don't want any more such work. After this incident, Kopp was treated for shock and hypothermia because of the extreme cold.
Mm-hmm.
But she was the only officer who jumped in after him into the water. And that was what she had to say about it, was just that I was doing my duty. I had to do it.
I mean, like, what's a bunch of other people in the water gonna do as well? Probably get in the way, but...
Yeah, but you also think, like, she's a woman, so she most likely isn't as strong as most of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And she could have easily drowned herself.
That's true.
You know?
That's true.
Anyways.
And, like, back in those days, too, 1914?
1916.
1916?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, women at that time weren't necessarily considered equal to men.
Right.
In a sense. Because, I mean, like you said before, that...
Diving in
women,
after him.
Yeah. No, women back then were more seen as the stay-at-home mom and do the cooking and cleaning, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of... I'm sure it was probably irregular for a woman to be a cop back then.
Oh, yeah. She was literally the first one. No, you're right. I mean, she was the first sheriff's deputy. I don't know if she was the first, like, policeman, but I honestly don't know the difference. So.
Sure.
So, unfortunately, in 1916, Sheriff Heath was actually replaced by Sheriff-elect John Kourtney. And after he was replaced, Kopp got fired.
Oh, was this guy sexist?
No, it was a political thing. Because from what I gathered, the only, like, actual political piece that I got was that John Kourtney, so the new sheriff, was a Republican. So I'm assuming that means that Heath and his deputies were of the Democratic Party. And so a lot of deputies got fired. And there was a new law in place that basically said that you couldn't be fired based off of your political values and views, whatever. But they were not able to override it. Like, she fought really hard to keep her job and just was unsuccessful.
That's sad.
Yeah, so she was only a cop for a couple of years, if that, like a year and a half. But she was very successful when she did it and was, very... she was very admirable for her work. People really looked up to the things that she did and were very impressed by her. But it just came down to, like, a political issue. Anyways, so I couldn't find much information about this, but I do know that Constance and Norma started their own private detective agency a few years later. Kopp died. So Constance Kopp died in 1931 in Brooklyn at the age of 51. So a little bit of... today, modern world. In 2015, there was a book published by Amy Stewart, and she chose the title based off of a lot of newspaper headlines about her issues with Kaufman and the whole car debacle. So the novel, it's entitled Girl Waits with Gun.
Nice.
So I want to read it. It's on my list.
Girl Waits with Gun.
Girl Waits with Gun, yeah. So I believe that it's a fictional story based off of what happened.
Like historical fiction, kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Exactly. And then in 2016, her story was on an episode of Drunk History.
Oh, nice.
And
those are funny.
Yeah, that is the story of Constance Kopp, the cop.
Constable Constance Kopp, the cop.
Yeah, the first ever.
Good for her.
Yeah, isn't that cool? There's so many elements to that story that I'm like, what? I love how she handled the whole Henry Kaufman thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, he might have been stubborn, but she was tenacious.
Yeah. Well, and...
It's a good word for stubborn.
You have the good thesaurus. Just kidding. No, there was an article that I read about her story, and at the end of it, the girl who wrote the article was like, honestly, people probably just wanted her to, bend over because she was a woman. Mm-hmm. This would have been a very different situation if she was a man, and I'm not trying to make this a whole, like, sexist, feminist thing, but really, the biggest issue was that she was a woman that wouldn't give in to a man that was being an a-hole. So
Can't blame her.
yeah, she just wasn't afraid. At least so it seemed.
Good for Constance.
So yeah, thank you for coming.
Thanks for everyone for listening again.
Yeah, I'm sorry this is like half the length that they normally are, but I don't know, maybe you guys needed a break from the long episodes.
I know I did. Just kidding.
I know I needed sleep. No, but seriously, I thought that was a cool story.
That is a really cool story.
And the fact that she was a cop in Brooklyn, New York. It's like the Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
9-9. That's perfect. Do you know if her and her sister Norma, do you know if they had like any successes as private detectives?
I couldn't find any information other than the fact that they did start on yeah.
Because that would kind of be cool to see those stories too. Maybe it's in that book.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe it's in more newspapers.
Maybe.
Or maybe we just need a time machine and we can go back in time and see for ourselves what happened.
Legit. That would be so fun. Yeah. Also, the way that her last name is spelled is Kopp. And in Wisconsin, there is a burger shop called Kopp's, and that's how it's spelled. And that just brought me back. They have such good burgers and shakes and malts. Ugh, they're to die for.
You had me at Cops.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Let's go.
Yeah.
I've never been to Wisconsin
before. No, Cops
before.
is like a staple. Yeah.
We didn't have any listeners in Wisconsin, did we?
No, but we do have Missouri. No, wait, what was the other one? Minnesota. We have Minnesota, which is right next door. And I don't know if there's any cops in Minnesota, the restaurant, not the actual deputies.
Is it a chain? Like you can find it in places?
I believe so.
Nice.
The only one that I actually knew the location of was it was just right outside of Milwaukee.
Okay.
So.
Cool.
Yeah, it was super good.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I could go for a good burger and a shake or a malt or both. Why not?
Right now. Just kidding.
One in Milwaukee, as they say.
Yeah. If we ever make it over there. Oh, but no, back to the whole Brooklyn Nine-Nine thing is because this all took place in Brooklyn, I was picturing her as like a tall version of Amy Santiago.
Not Rosa?
No, surprisingly, because Rosa's the one that would be totally fearless.
Yeah.
No, but I pictured Amy. I think it's because a lot of like the articles that you read about Constance, they describe her as, not normal. Like, I mean, she was normal. She was a woman. She was tall, but she was a woman. And so basically, like, the picture they paint into your head is that she's supposed to be this, like, reserved, quiet, beautiful thing. But then she, like, surprises you and punches you in the face or something. I don't know.
Well, I hope not. I don't quite like being punched in the face.
Have you ever been punched in the face?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I have. A couple times.
By who?
We don't talk about it.
Oh, okay.
So, I have a dark side.
So Bruno.
We don't talk of... Anyway.
No,
one happened when I was in high school. I deserved that one. I won't go into the details of why I deserved it.
Was it a girl?
But I deserved it.
No,
it wasn't a girl.
Did you steal someone's girl?
No. No. And then the other one was, of course, in Bulgaria, where a lot of the people don't like foreigners.
Ah.
In like the littler towns, but...
The littler?
Yeah.
The smaller towns?
Mm-hmm. Littler. Smaller. They're synonyms. I have the better thesaurus.
Yes, you do.
We established that.
I have a bad thesaurus.
Yes.
Not only is it terrible,
it's terrible.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode.
I know I did.
If you have any stories that you would like us to share about your families and the wonderful things that they've done, wonderful, crazy, insane, awesome, boring, I don't know, everything in between, send it to us at famjamlypodcast@gmail.com.
Additionally, if you're a history buff and you know of a good family or dynasty or even just like, I don't know, something along those lines, send us that too.
Yeah, give us suggestions. That would be awesome. Something that you might want to hear us cover. All right, that is all, folks.
And before we leave, a bit of advice. Don't eat your soup with a fork.
Thanks.